All right. Hey there, and welcome to the Built to Thrive podcast. I'm Andy Root, and this is the podcast where we have real, honest conversations about what it takes to run and start and grow an accounting firm. I'll be talking with firm owners who've been through it all, the struggles, the wins, and everything in between. So trying to not have any fluff or theory, practical insights and real stories to help you build a firm that supports the life that you want to live instead of one that consumes it. So whether you're just getting started or looking for fresh ideas to take your firm to the next level, we want to inspire and empower you to thrive inside of your firm. So my guest today is Ron Harris, the founder of Harris Group CPAs in Traverse, Michigan. So Ron, welcome.
Andy, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. As we were talking, Ron and I have known each other a while now. Both avid fans of the game of golf, even though we're struggling to be able to do that at the moment as we got another snow dusting. Even worse for you.
Or as I like to call, we play stupid fake indoor golf right now on golf simulators.
I am not any good on a golf simulator. It just doesn't work out. I don't know why, but it doesn't translate to the course, at least for me.
It is the computer algorithm. I've always said that is I do not hit a duck hook like that in real life. But something about the computer says I do. So be it. And that's why we call it stupid fake indoor golf.
That's right. No matter how many YouTube videos I watch, it's so Ron, let's dive into this here. Let's really start with, your story. What made you want to run an accounting firm, become an accounting firm owner in a world where we're starting to see reports and data that people coming out of college and going into the profession, is lower than it probably ever has been. So for you, what kind of triggered that for you?
Wanting to have my own firm wasn't something that really happened. So a mentor used to say, you didn't know if you wanted to go to the dance until you got asked. And it really wasn't until I was asked to buy a firm that I said, yeah, maybe that makes sense for me. And looking back, when I was at a large firm in Lansing, part of it was I just wanted to be up north. And if you grow up in Michigan, living up north and being up north is a huge thing, especially if you're from downstate. And so it wasn't necessarily wanting to have my own firm, it was I wanted to be up north. And the way it happened was when I was in college, I interned with a firm in Traverse City because they didn't have very high grade expectations, so that I met that box. And my girlfriend slash fiance slash now wife was from Charlevoix. And so it just made sense. And I was up north. So I ended up doing an internship with this firm. And it was all audit based. And we traveled to God's green earth of Michigan doing electric cooperative. So nowhere fancy. And I mean, electric cooperative by default is in rural areas. So dinner was, McDonald's or, it wasn't, luxurious. My wife said, oh, you're staying in hotels. I'm like, okay, if you want to call it a hotel. So, right. But then after that, I got employed at a large firm in Lansing and working my way through, I was a manager. And I remember to this day, I got the phone call from the firm I internship said, hey, we want to retire and you're the first one we thought of. I was like, oh my God, how awesome. I can get back, we can move to Traverse City. And, so 5 years in at a large firm, I was kind of starting to see the writing on the wall. Is either you're in for it the long haul or you got to make a change. And so I was so excited. I went home and talked to she had graduated from girlfriend to fiance at that time. And I said, hey, I just got the offer to buy the firm I interned with. And she's like, that's great. It's not going to happen. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, we were due to be married in a month. So this was August of 99. We got married September of 99. And she said, so we're going to get married. We're going to start our life together. We're going to move to Traverse City and start a firm. She goes, that's a recipe for disaster. So I wholeheartedly give my wife all the credit in this, because she saw that this would have been a really bad thing for our marriage and probably for the firm.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I said, guys, not going to work out. Too many things in my life going on. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. It doesn't have to be now. It can be a year from now. It could be 2 years from now. Well, and I went back to my fiance and said, well, hang on a second. And she said, that works. Let's figure that out. She wanted to get back to near her hometown. I wanted to be in northern Michigan. And a year later, so September of 2000, 25 years ago, I became the owner of a firm and walked in the first day and had no clue what the heck I was doing. No
What
clue.
you were doing.
No clue.
And to back up real quick, give me some demographics of the firm that you're operating at now. Staff, revenue.
Yeah, so staff, we have 11. It seems like I have to recount every day. And I'm not good at that whole counting thing. 11 staff, just eclipsed $2 million of revenue this past year. One office. We were at 3 offices at one point in time. I don't know why. It just kind of happened that way. And then eventually I realized that it was just really silly to have these outpost offices 20 minutes away. So we consolidated some years back. So that's kind of where we're at today. About 50-50 client services, client accounting services and tax services. We got out of the, so it's funny, firm that was 100% audit is now 0 audits.
Right.
It took a while to do that. And that just happened. I was at a conference where I met your dad.
Yep.
And I met Darren, and he made me kind of look at things, and I came back and I call it my Jerry Maguire moment. I remember calling my wife saying, oh my goodness, we're going to change. I'm going to make change. And scheduled a staff meeting for that morning, walked in. I said, hey, does anyone like what we're doing? Not a single staff person raised their hand.
Wow.
We were heavy audit. We were doing electrical operatives, counties, school districts, townships. I said, does anyone like what we're doing? And not a single person raised their hand. I said,
wow.
Perfect. This is what we're going to do. We started shedding the audits. We started focusing on back office work. We started focusing on tax work. And it took some time because I couldn't just sell them off. So we had to work through them. But over a period of 5-6 years, we shed all of our audit clients. And we became what we are today. It was just a truly amazing moment, an aha moment where I finally said to the staff, do you like what you're doing? And they're like, nope, we don't.
Right. That's amazing. And for you to have the mindset and the thought at that point to also not just say, what does Ron want? But to get the feedback, from your team. Because you're only as successful as the team that you have in place, for the most part. But yeah,
that's 100% true. And then if you look at that environment of those clients, an audit client, by especially a governmental, every 3 years they're going to bid you out. And I lost a school district once by $50. $50.
Wow.
That was hello, writing on the wall. I just lost a good client. We had a good relationship, and when I asked why, I said, well, somebody was lower by $50.
Yep.
$50? Seriously? And so, yeah, trust me, we may lose a client, a back office client or a tax client, because they don't like our prices or, but it's not, if I told someone, yeah, your price is going up $50, they'd be like, yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, no big deal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and starting out's tough,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of brings you into the business model that maybe you didn't set out to build because you're trying to get up and going, right?
Yeah.
So in those first few months, as we go back to when you finally took over the firm and you walked in the door, not having any idea of maybe what you were doing at the time. I mean, for you in those first few months or maybe years, what were the hardest parts Whether that be with staff. How many staff was there at the time? Do you remember?
So it was the two people that were running the firm, Don and Barry,
Okay.
and they were old people. They not old people, sorry, but they were older and looking to retire. Which is funny because Barry is still kicking around today. He's doing audits and he's about 85 years old or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
What was the hard part? The hard part was you had to throw everything you had at this. Everything you had. The, this cute term called work-life balance. When you're
Right.
starting a firm, you don't get that term. I'm sorry, you don't.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, there's no such thing as work-life balance, unless you get lucky.
Right.
In both situations, my son was born in July, and we were still heavy doing school district audits. And in Michigan, those take place in August, September. 2-3 weeks after he was born, I had to hit the road.
Yeah.
And my wife went and moved in with her parents because she needed some help. And then very bad timing for a tax guy. My daughter was born in January, so same thing.
Wow.
It was, spent as much time as I could, but my wife then moved back to her parents. We needed the help, and I had to run the firm, and it just doesn't run itself. And that's the joke today is like I can go on vacation, but no one does my work when I leave. So
Right.
it's, eventually you're just going to have to catch back up. So it's just, but it's just hard because those early days, it's just you. It
Yeah.
is just you. And I remember thinking that, hey, in 5 years I'll have 10 staff and we'll grow this firm. It took 15 years to have 5 staff.
Right.
And now we're at 11, and it seems like a good level. But growth is hard, and which is funny because now I look at growth and we're turning clients away.
Right.
So in those early years, growth is hard, and that's what leads you to say yes to everything. You're saying yes to anything. Things that I don't want to do, but you were going to pay me. I need money. I'm going to do it.
Right.
And the awesome thing now is not only we love the clients we're working with, and we have this luxury of saying, no, I don't think we're going to be a good fit, or I'm not sure how we're going to get that done. So you can say no, and it's really weird. And growth happens organically now. Through
Yeah.
25 years of building relationship with bankers, financial advisors, attorneys, and we don't advertise. We don't advertise at all.
Right.
It's just building relationships.
And you're right. It does. It takes that time because, like you said, you're trying to survive. You're not thriving at that point. You're trying to survive and everything that comes in the door. And this happens to the majority of firms, at least the ones that I run across, is they get pulled into this business model that maybe consumes their life because they're trying to bring in revenue. And that's
Yep.
probably true for a lot of businesses, right?
Yep, totally.
How did staff react? So you took over the firm. There's obviously staff already in place. Here comes this new guy that's gonna be in charge now. How did that go in those early days?
Well, what's interesting is I wasn't in charge. I might have been the owner. I would, you know what my agreement was? It was on a post-it note. We didn't even have a business sale agreement. I was the staff person. I was just there. Yes, it was weird because I had to do the payroll and I was paying, the people, but I was not in charge. No way. But what happened is over the course of 3 years, the clients started to get to know me and they're like, so what's going on? We still went under the original firm name of Gaudet and Company, so I hadn't changed anything yet. And so, the clients are starting to say, well, Ron, we kind of like you, but how long you staying? What's going on? And I didn't even tell people I was the actual owner of the firm. I just let it be. It's, and because these were clients that the firm had for 15, 20 years. And so the idea was don't rock the boat, just come in and work. And so it wasn't until about 4 to 5 years later, I changed the name to Harris Group. I had a meeting with all the audit clients and said, okay, really since day one I showed up. I've been the owner, but there was no sense in changing anything. And then eventually, the agreement I had with Barry is he worked so many hours for me, but he had his own stuff he was doing, and Don was the one who was eventually going to retire out, and he did. And so it's like my first staff was someone I worked with at my old firm, and he was up in Petoskey, and he's like, I kind of need work. You need staff. Why don't we do something? And so I said, here, I'll pay you a salary, but whatever clients you have, you bring them to Harris Group, and we'll join forces that way. And so that started the two offices, one in Petoskey, one in Traverse City, and that worked for a while. And then I bought a guy in Sutton's Bay, just a small single guy shop. I bought him, but I kept that office. And well, that was a really nice office. It overlooked the marina up there, so it was really pretty.
Nice.
So the staff, it was, because then you need the admin staff. You need someone to help, and so staff really just we got to the point where like, oh, I think we need some help. Let's go find somebody. But in the beginning, I was the staff boy.
Right.
I was the one. Trying to do my best, and but then staff eventually you need them, but finding the good fit is difficult. We started a lot with interns. We would just grab interns, and they would help with what tax returns we'd have. Some we took on the road, some we didn't. So staffing is one of those things that just kind of grew by need. Over the course of 25 years, and that's where we're at today.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So looking back, in those early days, do you ever look back and say, hindsight's always 20/20, and everybody makes mistakes, but are there any key things that really stick out to you to go, I wish I'd have done this differently, or I wish I would have done that differently? Kind of in those early days.
So in the early days, I thought I was doing what I was meant to be doing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you start, getting, and I was in a bubble, right? All I did it was my firm, and, we just did our work, and, I wasn't really paying attention to the outside world or what other CPA firms were doing. And so, looking back now, I think it would have been more receptive to, do we like what we're doing?
Right.
Are we enjoying? And so now we kind of say that with our clients, hey, do we enjoy working with so-and-so? And if we don't, is it something we can fix? Or is the fix that we say, thank you, it's not you, it's us, right? The old breakup line.
George Costanza.
So being kind of evaluating, what do you like to do, and build more around what you like to do. And it took me 8-12 years before we really kind of started firing on all cylinders. And then once we started doing that, man, the revenue took off, and really things started to change. So the only look back is be more receptive to change and looking for change, and evaluate what you're doing and saying, do we like this? Is this a good fit? A great example is as simple as easy as payroll.
Sure.
Well, payroll was killing us because we were doing it the old school way of printing out all the quarters and the W-2. It was killing us. Well, there's a software company called ADP that has a really good platform. Look at that. And so just taking, hey, what are we doing? Can we make it better? And do we like what we're doing? The sooner you can ask yourself those questions and move forward, you're going to build yourself a better firm.
Sure. And it took, maybe you already said this, but how long for you to, and it's really getting out of that mindset of we talk about this all the time, of being that technician, in the firm all the time, to you being an entrepreneur of a business. Right. And a lot of, majority of the time, right, you're the owner, your name is on the sign out front, you're the guy or gal, right? That's a part of this. And so in that transition, building that business model and that mindset of not just working in the firm, we talk about it all the time, but working on the firm and stepping away, how difficult was that for you to finally be like, all right, I've got to take a different approach or a different mindset of creating a strategy and a vision for where I want this to go?
Yeah, that is extremely difficult proposition. I think most CPAs, by definition, are grinders.
Totally.
We want to come in and grind, right? Mentor. I used to meet with a mentor here in town, and we would sit down. And he said, a company needs three things: finder, minder, grinder. And he goes, if you're grinding, you can't be the finder and you
Sure.
can't be the miner. So you got to pick one. Now you can do some of, but if you're grinding, you're not finding. And so we would always meet for lunch, and he'd say, okay, well, how much of each are you right now? And once you realize that, yes, I understand there are things that I'm always going to do, but that's when the staff come into play and say, hey, what do you like to do? Oh, you don't like going to these cocktail receptions and these charity, not charity or chamber events? Oh, I
Yeah.
like doing that. So why don't I do that? And I'll go get the clients. You work on the clients. And so, it just takes a while to kind of figure out what your role is. And I remember being at my old firm in Lansing, and there were people who were clearly proficient enough to be a partner, but they didn't want it.
Hmm.
They just like to leave me alone. I don't want any of that. I just want to come into work. So every firm kind of needs a little bit of everything. You can't have all grinders because then you won't have any clients to work on. So
Right.
you have to know that role within the firm and be able to have enough bodies to kind of distribute across everybody.
Yeah. Um, absolutely. And how difficult was it for you that when you kind of stepped away and said, all right, these are the things we don't like doing, or we're going to do payroll differently, or we're going to stop doing audits and we're going to go more, CAS advisory type services. How difficult in that transition was it for you to get staff? Because a lot of times too, staff will be like, well, we've never done that, right? Or that's not the way we do
Right.
things
Right.
around here, right?
Yep.
So what was kind of your process for getting everybody on the bus, so to speak?
Yeah. So I was just going to throw around book titles, right? Well, I started with the why.
Yeah.
So you put everyone on the bus. I started with the why, and so. And it's really explaining this is going to help our pain point here. So instead of having to hire another staff person, when we really don't need another staff person, we just have this pain point. So, migrating payroll from the old paper system to ADP, it was what pain point are we going to fix? And this is how we're going to fix it. Anything we've done, like we rolled out a new 1040, start and finish process.
Yeah.
So we went back through that process and said, okay, why? What are we fixing? What are we trying to make better? And I tell you what, if you're telling your staff you're trying to make their life better, they buy in pretty quick. And it's pretty awesome. We just had this state of Michigan decided tax season wasn't busy enough, so they threw in some new sick time rules. And I just said to the staff, I said, hey, I don't have time to deal with this. So I had two people step up, and they're reaching out to all the clients, and so. But it's that buy-in to the system that they just jumped right in. They said, "Hey, we can take this. Perfect."
Yeah.
So if you explain to the staff you're going to make their life better, buy-in's generally pretty quick.
It is, and they understand the why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not working. I mean, at the time, were you guys working overtime, weekends?
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah. Especially, if we just keep highlighting that payroll process, January was a nightmare, just a
Yeah.
nightmare. Now it's quiet. We got some, the word 1099 in our office is like a swear word, but, just more from a client standpoint than anything else. But, yeah, January was a nightmare for our back office staff.
Yeah.
We had X amount of payrolls that all the W-2s had to be done, then reviewed, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And we have the pinch point of tax season itself, and we're not going to solve that right now. I am on my soapbox of the due date should not be April 15th. It should be June, July, August, somewhere out there.
Yeah.
I argue tax season now is a 45-day tax season. Realistic by the time people get all their stuff and are really ready. People drop off half of their things and, well, you're not ready. I can't issue you anything. That is one of my, I would love to see tax season. The only good thing about COVID was tax season was extended.
Right.
And I thought that was perfect. And that's really what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. We cram everything, into a very short amount of time.
Yep.
That puts stress on everybody, right? To say the least.
It definitely puts stress on everybody. Yeah, it puts stress on my bourbon bottle in my office too.
Right. Yes. And it takes away, and what's hard is firms, they can't continue to take 4 months off every year from putting their firm in the right direction, from growing their firm or working towards that business model, that ideal business model that you ultimately want. And that's what happens, right? Is typically it's, now it's back to January, but second week of February all the way through April 15th, is everything's dropped. And so for that period of time, everything stops, right? Until you kind of come up for air.
That is absolutely correct. This is the first tax season where, as of March 1st, we're not accepting any new clients. Can't do it.
Yeah.
And it scares me to death because who are we missing? Who is a great client that would be awesome to work with for the next 20 years, but we just can't do it. I can't
take it on. Yeah.
I can't commit to you when I've already made all these other commitments that I'm having a hard time getting to.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with, definitely because of the due date issue. That's one of the problems with the industry. If that was kicked off and we could work like normal people, that would not be a problem. And we would have better firms because of it. And we'd also have more time to identify issues in the near term instead of letting them fester and grow.
Yeah.
That's why a couple weeks ago I put an elephant, so like a furniture piece, I don't know, about a foot long, on our conference table. Now at all the staff meetings, I point to the elephant and say, okay, he's the only elephant in the room. What does anyone have to talk about? And just saying, bring it up. Let's have these conversations. Let's not walk away with the unsaid.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, tax season is stressful enough. If someone's harboring something that could easily be discussed over 5 minutes in a setting where we all share and we agree, then that's less stress that we have to deal with. So I think it's funny. Clients come in and like, so what's the elephant all about? I'm like, he's the elephant in the room. And so it's been a fun little thing that we've been doing this tax season.
And it's the only one that you have. And to reference, I read a book a number of years ago, Radical Candor, but having that openness where, I truly believe that teams, especially in accounting firms, really thrive when there is ultimate trust built, right? Where people can be open. They know that Ron is going to be here to listen to my challenges, my concerns, and those go outside the office walls, right? There are personal issues and things that people deal with on an everyday, cycle. And for them to be able to have that trust in you, and you're not just the guy that's like, hey, it's tax season, it's butts and seats, 8 to 5. I make a joke all the time that my grandpa ran the accounting firm for many years. And if you left, before 80 hours during tax season, he'd call you a part-timer, right? That was always
Right.
the running joke.
Absolutely.
And his culture at the time was get your butt in the seat, do the work, get it out, and move on with your day and leave me alone in the process, right? Because he was also heavily in production.
So, and this is one of the struggles I'm having because I'm trying to be a better leader. And to be a better leader, I have to be attentive to my staff, whether they're personal issues, client issues, I can't say it's tax season, we'll deal with that later. I
Right.
have to be attentive to their needs and be that leader that they're looking to me to be. So, talk about difficulties. I'm in here trying to grind away, but I notice something's wrong. So, hey, hey, what can we do to help? You want to go have a cup of coffee? You need to talk to somebody? You need to, how can I help? Or, sounds like you're struggling with the client issue. How can I help?
Yeah.
That's one of the challenges of, we're still a firm owner, a leader, a grinder. So you're trying to be all of these things, but you have to realize that the most important one's probably being that leader,
Totally.
because the better you can lead, the better your staff are going to be behind you and know that you have their back, and that's what's going to be really fulfilling, and then help to create an overall excellent culture for the firm.
Yeah. And that is so incredibly important. Something that we talk about all the time is as we talk to firm owners, is as you're planning out busy season, or even the entire year, is creating that space to lead, right? Because if everybody's heads down, if Ron is in production and he doesn't have time to deal with those issues that come up, then nobody's leading,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So it's baking in those times to lead, and asking the question that you just said is how can I help, right?
Right.
Not hey, you're doing everything wrong, but hey, let's have a conversation of how can I help. And so throughout that process, and as you build that trust amongst staff, that facilitates down to happy clients, right?
Exactly.
And keeping clients happy is key. So from Harris Group's perspective, what would you say, what has been some of the best strategies for keeping those clients happy, keeping that retention amongst clients?
Communication. Number one.
Yeah,
Number two, in real estate, they say, the best three things in real estate: location, location, location. In a CPA firm, it's communication, communication, communication. And it's probably like 4, 5, and 6 as well. Clients just want to know. I had to deal with it this morning, had an email, hey, uploaded my stuff 3 weeks ago, haven't heard anything. Oh, yep, I see it. Very sorry. Well, we got a little bit behind. We're on it. So clients just want to know. They want to have someone they can talk to. I always
sure.
joke with my staff. I'm like, hey, we're not saving lives here. So everyone can relax. Just relax. We're doing accounting, people. But you know what? Some of our clients feel like we're saving their lives. And so you have to remember that when you're working with a client. And so be attentive to their needs, respond to their communications, let them know you heard them, even if it's not something you can do today, or not going to get to for till next week. At least they know. And so I think creating that happy client is someone who really feels like we're in good communication with them. They understand what we're doing for them. And of course, we're providing value,
Yeah.
ultimately providing value back to the client.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially a silent partner of the client, right? That they rely on. So as you've continued to build this out over the years, was there a moment in time where you felt like, all right, this is really working. We're starting to hit on all cylinders here, and this is really, you know, moving forward.
Not even today do I think that. And okay, so Jelly Roll says the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror for a reason, and I think about that all the time. Is I never look backwards. I'm always looking forward, and when either my wife or my staff, somebody's staff person forces me to look in the rearview mirror, I'm like, wow, we did that. Holy cow. But then something will happen and I get all stressed out, and I just think, so I don't spend a lot of time looking backwards.
Yeah.
And I was, sometimes I get those dreams, right? Well, of course, the famous one is you're in college, but you have an exam and can't
Right.
find the classroom. You've never been in the classroom, but you have the final exam, right? Well, mine is, I know when I'm stressed is I have a dream that I have to go work for my old firm in Lansing. All the while I'm saying, yeah, I'm still trying to build this thing up north. And I know when I'm stressed because I have that dream and I wake up so mad because I'm far beyond that ever happening, right? And I think as business owners, you need to force yourself to look in the rearview mirror and realize what
Mm.
you've accomplished. I I get gushy when people, talk about me in town, and I'm just like, no, I'm just a CPA, and people are like, no, you know, you're a big deal. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not a big deal. No, and it just, and again, I think we need to spend more time looking backwards and realizing
Yeah.
our accomplishments and what we've done. We are so focused on today and tomorrow that we never sit back and relax and enjoy that. And we need to do more of that. So, yes, have I, I remember when I eclipsed $1 million in revenue, I thought I was going to be so excited. And I was down on Anna Maria Island, taking a break in the fall, and we had eclipsed it, and so I remember I was walking the beach, and I wrote a voice note about how excited I was that we eclipsed $1 million in revenue, and I said, I thought I'd be happier,
Hmm.
but all it does is make me wonder when we can eclipse $2 million,
Uh,
and so getting a little choked up. Instead of looking back at what an awesome accomplishment that is, I was like, all right, how long till we get to 2 million? Instead of, that was really awesome, guys. We did a great job.
yeah.
And I remember coming back and playing that for my staff. And I said, we're always focused on what's next. And I really am. And I thought that, I don't know, maybe there was like lights and music that would play when I walked into the office. Hey, congratulations, you hit $1 million. But that didn't happen. And it just made me realize that, okay, well, let's keep going and let's keep growing and let's keep doing fun things and see what happens.
That's great. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, being able to look back and celebrate those accomplishments and celebrate those accomplishments with your team,
Right.
right? And recognize that. Um, but we tend to just kind of, all right, it's the next day.
Yep.
Let's move on by it. And now we've hit $1 million. Great job. Now we got to go after two. It's great to have those goals out there.
Yeah.
But to have that recognition. So you mentioned work-life balance earlier. I actually hate the term work-life balance
Or lack thereof. But
or
yes,
lack
yeah,
thereof.
I hate the term too. I really do. I really do.
It gets overused, it gets consumed, and I would say before COVID happened, that was the term was work-life balance. Now we're starting to see this work-life integration,
Hmm.
right? Where work is a part of your life, of your everyday life, and because we have all these other things that we have going on, but that's not the way, we work so many hours and then we work during tax season or whatever that is, and we go take a vacation, and we block off that time and then we come back to work, right? So let's talk about work-life balance here for a little bit. How do you keep from getting completely consumed by the business? Because I've had that happen to me. I know others that have had that happen. Um, but it can be extremely, detrimental.
Well, you have to find your way, right? If you don't find a release, you'll drive yourself mad, because you will never get done what you have to get done. It
Yeah.
never goes away. For me, my release is about 3 years ago, I got my pilot's license. So I get up in the air, and trust me, I'm not thinking about accounting. You're thinking about being a pilot and landing a plane safely.
Right.
You know, getting up, we have a family lake house on Torch Lake, the most beautiful lake in the world, in my humble opinion. Getting up there and sitting on the dock and, looking at the water, and you have to find a release, a way to get away from it. I've come to the realization that it's never going to go away. Your emails are always going to be there. No one's doing anything for you. So you have to find a way to say, and that's what gets me back to the we're not saving lives here, right? So unless the IRS is banging on your door, do you really need me? Probably not. It's
Right.
just you're in the moment, but you have to find a release. You have to find a way to get away. Be it with your spouse, your family, alone time, or even as simple as just schedule a massage on a Friday afternoon and get out of here for a couple hours and trust me, turn it off. I've had a few massages where the carrier's her name. She's like, "So you didn't get there, did you?" I go, "Nope, couldn't turn it off." And
Yeah.
she can tell, and she's like, "All right, well, let's get you rescheduled quickly because you need it." And so you have to find a release because it is all consuming. It never stops. So I definitely think turn off your notifications. Your phone doesn't need to be beeping at night. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to
Yeah.
reply? Turn it off. Don't look at your email at night. When you leave for the night, don't look at your email. By God, please don't have your clients texting you on your personal cell phone number.
Right.
That is a big thing. Is if they have that, they have access to you 24/7.
Right.
But turn off those notifications. So it doesn't mean you don't. I think about work when I go home, but I think about the bigger thing of work of, hey, how do I make sure that we logged everybody in that's received? And, so I'm not working on ABC company or allowing them to interrupt my evening. So definitely turn off notifications, don't look at your emails once you leave the night. You have to find that release or else you will burn out. And,
Right.
so I'm amazed that, I'm weird. I love tax season. I really do. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress, but you know, I love the puzzle piecing of putting tax returns together. So it's awesome. But
Yeah.
trust me, when I leave here at night, I'm dead zombie tired and I don't want to think about it until 6 in the morning the next day.
Right.
And so you have to have that release or else it will consume you and you'll burn out and you'll just be done.
And so you've set those boundaries, and then so how have you translated that also to your team? Because burnout amongst team is really big, right? And there's nothing that we hate hearing worse, which is, oh, I just had two of my best people leave
Right. Yeah.
on March 15th. And
Oof.
it happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. So really it's a self check-in. Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
Yeah.
How's your family life? You getting enough rest at home? You got to check in with them. And also, I don't have any expectation for them that's anything higher than my expectation. And frankly, my expectation of me is higher than what I would want for my staff. But it is part of the, on Fridays or Saturdays, I'm like, hey, how you doing? You all right? I'm tired. Okay. Well, you don't, want to take Saturday off? No, that's fine. I just, let's just make sure you find time, for yourself, spend some quality time with your spouse, some time away. So, but it's same thing as, I'll hear, staff replying to clients at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, why are you doing that? You're setting the
Yeah.
expectation of valuability. So
Right.
don't do that. And I'm as guilty as everybody else. Get an email, reply right away.
Right.
Stop doing that.
It's one thing that I can check it off now and be
It can
done,
be
but
done, right? Yeah.
right.
Yep. And so, but it is not having any higher expectation for your staff than you would yourself. And if you're not willing to do it, then you shouldn't have your staff. It shouldn't be an
Do it.
expectation of your staff. That's for sure. But then checking in with them, trying to identify, hey, you seem down. You want to go have lunch? You want to go, hey, can we do something? What can I do for you? You need some time off. Do you want a coffee? Do you want, just try to help
Yeah.
them as much as you can.
And in that process, especially as you started your firm and really, everything was kind of on you for the most part, was delegation, was that difficult for you? Is it still difficult to kind of give you that space to lead or to, position yourself in the firm in a different light?
Well, when I started, delegation was easy because I was chief cook and bottle washer, right? I had to do everything.
Right.
I printed, I assembled, I sent, called, so, but it is difficult, right? And where you fall in the trap is I can do this faster myself than if I gave it to somebody else. There's your trap.
Yeah, totally.
I actually emailed a staff yesterday and said, well, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, or you can teach a man to fish.
Yeah.
And that's all I left it. I didn't put any additional flavor on the email. It's like, yeah, train your client to do that so you don't have to do that. Because you said, hey, I could just go fix this. I'm like, yeah, you could. And then you're going to fix it every single month.
Right.
So a lot of it is allowing others to do what you can do faster. But again, once you turn it over to them, you don't have to do that again. And, help them to be more efficient, making sure they obviously have the qualifications to do something. But you fall in the trap of, I can do it faster. You can, and you can do it faster tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, and the next month. But so until you get out of that cycle, you're going to stay in it.
Yeah, you have to set different expectations. Otherwise, you set the wrong expectations, and it's a lot harder to unwind all of that. So
doing something wrong is okay.
Right.
That's the other thing is this industry is so negative, and you did this wrong. You did this wrong. I tell them it's okay to be wrong. Support your wrong. What did you do? So can we go back to the road and say, what on-off ramp did you get onto and you went the wrong way?
Yeah.
Can we get to that decision point? Let's fix that. Then next time
Yes.
So it's okay to be wrong. And I think we're so afraid of being wrong that we don't want to try anything new because we want to be wrong. Being wrong is okay. Being wrong is okay.
Wrong. I like that. Being wrong is okay. And you're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
That's what makes experience. That's what makes us better, right? But you're right. If we don't acknowledge those mistakes, but I think a lot of times, from an owner perspective, from a staff perspective, it's, if the owners make a mistake, the client's going to leave. Or if a staff makes a mistake, I'm going to be fired. And it's creating that mindset. It's creating that culture that, hey, there's going to be mistakes, and that's okay, right? And we're going to work through those.
Right.
So as we're seeing the future of accounting, it is changing rapidly, right?
Is it though?
Incrementally.
Sure. There we go. Yes.
Incrementally, because you're right. I mean, for firms your size, the firms that we talk to that are really in that 5 to 30 in staff size, revenues, between $1 to $5 million, whatever. There's 120,000 firms across the United States, and in that demographic, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And these are the firms that are being impacted, I think, the most, because you mentioned it earlier. You have these relationships with these clients, and these clients love having that relationship with you. And so as much as things change in the accounting industry, like technology, now we've got artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I love your opinion on this too. I think that relationships are more important now than they've ever been. We can automate everything in the world. We can use artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, the difference between what are going to set certain firms apart is, yes, leveraging those technologies, but always putting the relationship first. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, because what are you billing the client for?
Right.
Anybody can do a 1040. Anybody. I'm sure in Traverse City alone, there's 20 plus firms. Anybody can do a 1040.
Including technology.
Including technology. But it's the who's at the other end of the phone. I am still shocked to this day if I call a client with a question on their 1040 and say, "Oh my God, you're working on my 1040?" Yeah, I am. And it is that relationship that we're billing our fees for. Because if there were no relationship, I couldn't justify what I'm charging. So the using AI, using the additional technologies that are coming our way, for me, it's how do you build a more efficient system? And I've also had this attitude of we have to meet the client where they want to be met. So in our new system, I've had many clients upload all their documents who normally would drop off things. And so you would intuitively say, well, I can now deliver the return digitally. But I've called a couple of them. I'm like, so by the way, thank you for using our new system. How'd you like it? Yeah, it was nice. Would you like me to deliver your tax return that way? No, I want paper. Okay. I would be happy to do that for you. And so while if it's all there, so technology can be there, but if it's not what the client wants, it doesn't matter. So you have to use technology in your firm to make yourself more efficient, more reliable, and put about a better product.
Right.
All while maintaining that relationship. That's where I think the use of technology is coming into play. I didn't like our 1040 delivery process. I found a process that I think is better. So we moved to it. And so far, yeah, I'm getting very good responses from it. And so has that changed my relationship with these clients? No, but it's just made our process internally easier, more efficient.
And there's a balance there, right? Because yes, there's client wants and client needs, but not for the sake of uprooting your business model that you're putting into place, right?
Well, you can't, right? Well, if the needs of clients outweigh what you can perform, you just need to be smart enough to say we're not going to be a good fit. We started looking at that. If we have a client with foreign activities, like heavy foreign activities, I don't mean they got a dividend with some foreign tax on it, but those are probably clients that we're just really not geared for. So and it goes back to what's the ideal client. And having the right technologies for the ideal client. But you're right, you're not going to, buck your entire system for one or two people. It's easier just to say no thank you and find two people that fit in your system, because it'll be those two people that cause you the greatest headaches, and you just don't want them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But for firms to, it's certainly not something that they can shy away from at this point, right? Technology's here. Do I think it's going to replace, staff and accounting firms? I don't. I think that's a huge stretch. I think that firms that are leveraging these technology and these capabilities, those are the ones that are going to thrive, right? Those are the ones that are going to move ahead.
Correct.
It's the firms that say, well, we've never done things that way, and that's just
you better look at retiring. You better look at retiring if that's so. I don't think it's going to replace. It's going to supplement staff. So going back to my payroll example, had we not put that software, now obviously ADP not necessarily AI, but had we not leveraged that technology, we couldn't do more payrolls because I would have needed more people. So technology is there to supplement your staff. Definitely not replacing. That's not going to happen. We might get better on coding within QuickBooks Online. They may get smarter and do what we do, which is basically Googling the company. What do they do? Oh, they sell widgets. Okay, that's a widget, right? Yeah. So Definitely not going to replace the staff. Supplement the work product is really the best way I can put it.
Yeah, and to help make your lives easier. That's what technology is there for, is to help make your life easier, right?
100%. If you don't want to do it, if you don't want to use technology and you want to be old school, that's fine. You can file everything on paper. You can do that, but it's just, where's your work-life balance?
Right.
If you're busy, pushing returns and it just, you have to use them going forward, or, time to sell, time to move on, something else.
Yeah. So, Ron, as we wrap up here, and ADP is going to love your plug. That was not planned.
It was not planned, but it's a good example.
It is. It's a great example.
And ADP is a good team member of ours. So again, definitely not plugged. They can send me any type of compensation they like, though. That would be appreciative.
Yeah. Your way. Yeah. But in talking about that tech stack too, right? With technologies out there, there's applications all over the place. I mean, so you can get also app or technology overload.
Yes.
So how important has it been for you and your firm to identify what that ideal tech stack is? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to have 35 different applications that you're logging into every single day, right? How can we simplify that?
So that's definitely something that we look to as we're looking at a new technology is, what does it replace? And are we replacing 2 to 3 different technologies? And that's kind of where you're getting at now is, we implemented a system called Trust for our tax returns. That's replacing 2 technologies right now. And making something that we didn't even have better. So anytime you're evaluating technology, it better be replacing at least 2 things.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's all over out there. I was reading an article yesterday, and there's an integration for QBO now that will review the data within QuickBooks to tell you how messed up it is. That's the best summary I have. I didn't dig too much deeper in there, but that's just another. It's not even helping with the coding. It's just that software is going to look at the QuickBooks file and tell you how screwed up it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool, actually. Because then I can send that to the client and say, you're really messed up, right? And so here's my bill to fix it.
Right. Not just my opinion that it's messed up, but here's actually.
But you're right. So when you're evaluating tech, it better be replacing 2 to 3 things you're doing right now and not adding anything else.
Right. And there's not always a one size fits all, right? It's figuring out what are the goals specifically to your firm, right? I mean, I see this all the time. We're offering a lot of the same services, but firms are not all equal. They're not all the same. The demographic, the location that you're in, the technology culture, that you have, and at the same time, with all these new technology, it's hard to keep up. And as the owner, you're getting called constantly. Hey, use this, use that, use this, use that, right? And you don't have time. You don't have time to vet all these technologies. No. Right?
And so we're even getting phone calls during tax season to try new technologies for 1040. I'm like, no, you missed the window, buddy.
It's a surefire way to know that that they may be outstretched a little bit is don't call me during tax season, right?
Right, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying, anytime you're evaluating technology, you really need to pick a technology champion for a particular program.
Totally.
So here, you do it. It can't all be me. And I've even told them, basically going forward, it's not going to be me. I'm going to push these things out there. You guys look at them. You guys decide what you want to do, because, I'm looking hopefully to retire sometime, and it's like, let's just say the window of me wanting to do something that's going to take 2 years to convert is pretty slim, considering I only want to work 5 more years. So the problem though, Andy, is that 5 more years, it's been 5 more years for like 5 more years.
That's the way it goes, right? But empowering your staff to help in those decisions, that way it's not just, Ron saw the next shiny new thing and we're going to give this a whirl for a little bit, right? It kind of goes back to that, to that trust. So
absolutely.
Well, as we start to end here, Ron, a couple other questions that I have here, and you can kind of quick fire these if you want
Sure.
to. But looking back, what would you say is one mindset shift that made the biggest difference in your success?
You don't have to do what you've been doing from day one. That's it.
Yeah.
Just because you've been doing something since the day you started the firm doesn't mean that's how you should do it tomorrow. And the quicker you analyze that, the better you're going to make your life. Don't be resistant to change. Allow it to happen. Get the buy-in from your staff. And things will eventually just continue to get better and better. But if you're resistant to change, then you're going to be stuck doing it the same way over and over again,
Yeah.
and wondering why you can't go to your kid's basketball game at 10 o'clock on a Saturday. And
Yeah.
you never want to get in that position.
You don't, and that has always been a personal goal of mine, because working with firm owners, I joke about this, but I could care less how good you are at doing tax returns. I'm sure you're fantastic at it, but at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is the why that you said earlier, right? It's building a business to support the life that you want to live, and being able to be there for, if you have children, um, you know, tax season takes away from those, and the world doesn't stop, right? Kids still have activities. There's other priorities outside of that, out of children as well, whether it's friends or family or what have you. But building that business to support the life that you want to live, right?
Absolutely. That's why you do it. If not, you
That's why
built yourself a job. You haven't
built
built
yourself a
anything.
job.
Yeah, you're not
Right.
supporting your life. You build a job.
So if you could give one piece of advice, other than being open up to change, but for a firm owner out there listening who is feeling stuck,
Yeah.
right? That they're feeling stuck right now, and they're trying to figure it out. What would that be?
First thing is learn the best word in the English vocabulary. No. You got to say no. That's step one, is stop taking stuff that you really shouldn't be doing. Step two, increase your prices. I struggle with this still. We've done a pretty good job of increasing our pricing. I still struggle, and if you're only getting a little bit of pushback, you didn't go high enough.
Go ahead. All right.
So you got to say no, evaluate your pricing, and you got to kill the dead clients, the ones that completely bother you all the time, are annoying, they're wasting too much time. Let them go, because your staff don't like them either. And that's what really is important. We found this recently. There's a couple clients we had, staff really just didn't like working with them. And so I did the polite way to increase the fee high enough where they eventually decided to go somewhere else. But so support your staff. A lot of people think it's clients first. It's really staff first, because if they're not happy, you're going to be there all by yourself. So support your staff, learn to say no, increase your prices.
Good ones, very much. And then, Ron, what's next for you? I mean, I know you said in 5 years, but 5 years could go by.
Right?
Anything that you're excited about, or just for Harris Group in general?
We started earlier on this podcast about not looking backwards. So Harris Group celebrating the 25th anniversary, September 18th. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really going to relish that, and we're going to open it up to all clients, and
Cool.
And just really enjoy that celebration. So that's near term, right? So what are the goals for Harris Group? And it's the same goal every year: get better at getting better.
Yeah.
Refine the process, be better for our clients, be better for our staff, and continue to grow in what we love doing, and continue to get to, and I've used this before, and I think maybe Darren has said it, get to the tip of the spear.
Mm-hmm.
Get so focused on what we want to do and who we want to work with that we're going to get to the tip of the spear of being that focused. What does the future look for Ron? I really enjoy what I'm doing now. I joke about the 5 more years until retirement. I ran into a good friend, orthopedic surgeon who retired 2 years ago, and told him my plan, and he said, "Don't do it." I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Don't retire in 5 years. Retire in 7. Just take more vacations." I said, "Oh, okay." So I'm only 52. The joke there is I've been telling everyone I'm 53, and my wife's like, "No, you'll be 53 this year." I'm like, I had no idea. No idea. I love being the advocate for our clients and our staff. I love showing up and talking to them and just seeing what's going on either with a client or, and I love the staff wins or the client wins. Client has a bang up year or hits a milestone. It's awesome. Staff, gets married, has a baby. Those are awesome things.
Yeah.
So, what we want to do at Harris Group is just continue to find the right clients, get more efficient at our model, and have fun doing it, and realize we're doing taxes. We're not saving lives.
Right. Yeah. I love that, man. Ron, I appreciate you taking the time, especially during tax season, which I think is another great sign to sit on here and have this conversation and really to tell your story, right? And I think that's the most important thing is there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of smart accounting firm owners out there. And by creating a community and listening to these stories is what is, I think, very powerful. So thank you again for hopping on here.
I appreciate the invitation, and I love telling my story. And I think what we find is that a lot of us out there are all alike, and we have very similar stories, and just, so being able to talk about it, and, we might have all had different paths to where we are now, but we're all kind of dealing with the same stuff every day. And so
Totally.
It's just good to get out there and realize you're not alone. Somebody else is battling the same decisions you're having. And so I'm happy to be part of your Built to Thrive podcast. And I definitely enjoy our relationship, and I'm looking forward to golfing some bourbons with you this summer too.
I am itching at the bit to do
Right?
that. So
Awesome.
Ron, thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Too.